Hello, this is Max.
Hey, this is Twiggy.
And this is
Tech
Tech. And we are in our 5th episode. So it's going to be a continuation on the cyber attacks, and Twiggy wanted to go into some detail on some recent, not so recent, basically a history of some attacks and what happened and why, what they were after, all the good stuff.
Okay.
So take it away.
So, I wrote a couple reports on some fairly recent cyber attacks. I guess not fairly recent, because the first one was from Target in 2013, and then I want to touch base on the Equifax breach. So, when I went through my cybersecurity course, it was one of my assignments to do some reports on these breaches, basically to describe what happened and prevention. And just kind of education on everything.
Right.
Okay. So back in 2013, Target retail stores had credit card information, roughly about of 110 million shoppers just stolen.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a pretty big breach, and so it was an interesting way of how these hackers got into the POS system that was supposed to be separate from everything else. So if you remember in previous episodes, I was talking about network segmentation.
Right.
And so a term that was used in the cybersecurity universe is crown jewels. So if we think about crown jewels, think of Queen of England, and crown jewels are, or King of England, for this matter, are kept at the Tower of London, whatever, basically. They're protected.
Right.
So you're thinking that your most valuable information, i.e. Customers' credit card information, should be protected. And it should be separate from everything else. So what happened is the breach was not directly... It didn't happen in the store. It didn't happen at store level. But it actually was... created by a phishing attempt in their vendor portal for their HVAC systems.
Oh.
So their HVAC and refrigerator systems vendor had kind of like backdoor access to the rest of Target's network, which is definitely a big no-no.
Yeah.
And
to a bad actor, yeah.
It has been it's been fixed since then. But what happened is we were talking about phishing a couple episodes ago, that these hackers are just trying to find any way to get into your systems. And so the mechanical company that does the HVAC and refrigerator systems, somebody got a kind of weird email, and they decided to respond to it and give away some of their...
classic mistake.
Their user and password information. So, interesting thing about this one, I'll read a little bit of verbatim. So prior to the attack, the hackers, they probably did some reconnaissance to find the Target's supplier portal, and they found out how unsecure it was. So this supplier portal was designed for new and existing vendors, shows them how to submit invoices, etc. And you can find this vendor portal by a simple Google search. So you have access to this vendor portal by just Googling it, and if you get in the correct way, you can get all the way into Target's credit card systems.
Wow.
Yeah, so POS systems or point of sale systems should be away from all this stuff in general.
Yeah, yep.
So Target unfortunately learned that the hard way.
Yikes.
So here's the fun thing is, well, not fun, but dangerous at the same time. So this same year, Target participated in a public case study and discussed how they used Microsoft tools in related to their POS systems. This should not be a public case study because you are literally pulling back the curtain on how you keep your POS system secure.
Right, and so if I was a bad actor and you just told me what system you're using to authenticate purchases, how to back up your files, and all that, and I'm just so happen to be specifically trained into breaking in said products, you just revealed all kinds of intel
Yeah.
out to the world of just a sea of piranhas.
Yep. Yeah. Target was
You put blood in the water.
Target was essentially caught with their pants down on this one.
Oh yeah.
So attackers found third-party refrigeration company. I'm not going to name it. And they gain access to Target's infrastructure by stealing their credentials through that phishing email.
Not bad.
So that employee was tricked in with a phishing email. So the phishing email was allowed. So what came in, it was called Citadel. It was a variant of a Zeus banking Trojan. So this Trojan, if we go back to ancient times, you've heard of the Trojan horse, where they had a bunch of... why can I not remember the nation?
I gotcha. It was the Trojan Wars, and they were in Troy.
Yes.
And Troy was this impenetrable city, and they couldn't find a way in, and so they gave Troy a gift as the Trojan horse.
Yeah, the wooden horse. Yeah, I remember that.
Massive wooden horse, and nobody thought of anything suspicious about this, and they accepted the gift, and they thought all peace in the world, and everything was great, and the Trojans are great craftsmen and built this beautiful horse, and they brought it in, and instead of lighting the horse on fire, they just let it sit in the middle of the city square, and a bunch of tiny little Trojan soldiers jumped out of this massive wooden horse, and they eventually gained access to the city, destroyed Troy, which was later found. Like, everybody thinks that this place was a myth. They actually found it. They found Troy. So the story has some weight to it, even more so than just a mythological thing. Right.
A lot of malware is called Trojans because it's literally just hiding in plain sight. And then it's they attack when it's least expected. Okay, so this Trojan was called Citadel. It was installed on the mechanical company's computers. So they waited until the malware was found, or found the credentials through that phishing attack. So they likely went undetected. This company was using a free version of Malwarebytes. You're
really?
thinking this giant company should have used something a little more secure, and they didn't have real-time scanning enabled. So that, once again, what ticks me off about cybersecurity and how people are getting in is because these companies are being negligent. I am not trying to drag them through the mud, but I'm just letting the public know that these companies are negligent.
Yeah,
they should be protecting your data, and they are not.
Yeah, and this was back in, what, 2013?
2013.
So that was 2013. Now, we've had recent, a little bit more recent. We had some in 2017, right? With the Equifax.
So you guys will probably remember the Equifax breach because you probably got emails, letters, or whatever saying that your data has been stolen, and now Equifax is providing you with this free credit monitoring. So once again, I'm going to not insert my opinion, but I guess insert a little bit of emotion. And this one really ticks me off. So the attack happened between March and May of 2017. These bad actors stole PI, which is abbreviation for personally identifying data. So that's going to be your names, your addresses, dates of birth, social security number, driver's license numbers.
Basically you.
Yeah, so they found that information. Hundreds of millions of people were affected this. So that's why your stuff was on freeze, because your information was open season to whoever wanted it. They could have kept it from themselves and did a bunch of havoc, or they could have sold it on the black market, dark web, what have you. Not only did they steal all that information, but they also stole 200,000 credit card numbers. So 200,000 people were susceptible to having basically all of their money wiped out.
Right.
And least case scenario, they're locked out of their funds because all their stuff is going to be frozen. So at this time, if your Equifax is frozen, anytime you're applying for a credit card, loan, what have you, you have to contact Equifax and be like, hey, I was part of this breach that was your fault, and now you need to unlock it temporarily so I can do this, and then relock it after I'm done with this. So it created a hassle for everybody. So what happened is these hackers exploited a vulnerability to the consumer complaint portal, which is ironic. So a place that people complain about Equifax, or let's say something was wrong in your credit report or what have you. They found.
So that's how they got all the information, I'm assuming.
So they literally found a back door, and back with Target, why would you connect your vendor portal to your credit card systems? Equifax, why the heck would you have your consumer complaint portal attached to all of the personal information? That should have been segmented.
Right. Well, I think you're kind of missing the worst part about the entire situation is that what they found was all in plain text.
So I'm not sure about this one. This may have been encrypted. I would have to do a little bit more research on that.
Or you're talking about the medical facilities.
So I thought the medical facility, it was all in plain text document, but after I started researching more of it, that information disappeared. So I don't know if they swept that information under the rug or if it wasn't true in the first place.
Okay.
Because you cannot find that information anymore. I checked on Krebs Design Security. I did a Google search.
So like the whole story was just basically wiped.
Very possible.
That's more concerning than just having the story itself. Because me and you have been talking about this story for weeks. Now, here's the thing. Is that in last episode I was talking about how the pharmacies are talking about how they had a data breach. And all that. So like, are they lying? Like, like you see what I'm trying to get at? Is like, what was
who are we
scrubbed?
believing?
Yeah, and so I'm going to believe on the side of logic that something did happen.
Oh, something definitely
happened. They don't want to know they don't want to tell the public how incompetent they are with your information.
So, I want to finish this up about Equifax and kind of explain why I'm so mad about this situation.
Yeah, let's do it.
So this attack happened between March and May of 2017, and I believe Equifax didn't even figure out they were getting attacked until I thought it was like July or something. Yeah. So they're getting attacked from March until July, and Equifax didn't even realize they were getting attacked.
4 months.
Until around July. Okay.
Wow.
So I'll do a little bit of verbatim again. So there is a database. I'm trying to remember what it's called offhand, but there's different CVE files or like incidents that have happened or vulnerabilities that have happened. This is all public knowledge. And even the hackers had access to this. Right. So those of you who are following along here, it was just kind of like a storm of events that happened. Okay, so March 2017, a vulnerability dubbed CVE 2017-5638. 2017 is going to be the date. And then the vulnerability file is 5638. You guys can look this up on your own.
We can all look this up.
Yep.
Like, this is not just like a made-up conspiracy hogwash. This is all public information.
Yep, this is a conspiracy, or not conspiracy. This is a vulnerability that documented that Apache Struts saw, and it was like, hey, this needs to get fixed because this can easily get hacked and you guys are gonna have a bad time. So this vulnerability was discovered by Apache Struts, who owns this basically I'm not sure if it's a security company or security software. We can get into that later if you have questions. So discovering Apache Struts. Apache Struts is an open source framework for creating Java applications that, along with thousands of websites, including Equifax, use. The vulnerability discovered was if the attacker sent HTTP requests, so a hyper transfer terminal protocol, something like that. Right. You can look it up if you want. Requests with malicious code within the content type header. Struts could be tricked into executing the code and opening the system to further intrusions. So even in the header, they could easily put malicious code in there, and the framework wouldn't recognize it.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so on March 7th, Apache Software Foundation released a patch for this specific vulnerability on March 9th. Equifax admin was told to apply this patch in the affected systems. Equifax employee responsible for this did not patch the systems, and on March 15th, Equifax's IT department ran a series of scans that were supposed to identify unpatched systems, but the scans either did not work or none of the systems were flagged or patched. So they had 8 days.
Wow.
They had 8 days to
figure this out.
Patch this.
Right.
When did they patch this? They didn't freaking patch it. Sorry if I'm getting emotional, but Equifax was negligent on this part. It was their entire IT team that didn't patch a vulnerability that was known. So, Max, if you were a hacker and you knew this patch,
right,
it's freaking open season.
Yeah, it's like it's basically like taking a knife, cutting your hand open, and putting it into the Amazon River, and then turning around and being shocked that your hand's gone from a party of piranhas basically swimming right for you.
Okay, so here's a fun part. It's
kind of crazy.
Along with this report. So, I'm just going to read verbatim again. According to the forensics, unidentified individuals scanned the systems for vulnerability that the United States Computer Readiness Team. So there's an actual full federal team that can research if companies are doing their job.
Wow, okay.
We can get a little more of that later. Okay, so vulnerability, United States Computer Readiness Team had publicly identified just 2 days earlier that these identified individuals also discovered that a server housing Equifax's online dispute portal, which we were just talking about,
right,
was running a version of the software that was unpatched from the vulnerability. So 2 days earlier, so that puts us on March 13th. So they used software from an unknown source to design an exploit that gained access to the portal and confirmed that they could run malicious commands. So when Equifax did not patch this, the hackers were in there testing to see if their malicious code worked.
Right.
And they were doing They were doing this for days.
Well, months. Apparently
and months.
Yeah, until they actually found the breach.
Okay, so at this time, no data was taken. So they're literally just dipping their finger in there, seeing how much they can get away with.
Of course.
But beginning on May 13, 2017. Okay, so the vulnerability was found. It didn't give me a date in March. But March 7th, they introduced a patch. It was supposed to be patched on the 9th. Was not patched by the 15th. May 13th. That's when the hackers started playing around. Okay, so the attackers gained access.
So it didn't even matter. They would have to have patched the patch to get those hackers out because they were already in.
Yep. So this could have been prevented months in advance.
Right.
So essentially the hackers basically gave like Equifax, hey, are you serious? Are you actually not going to patch this and we're just going to have a fun time with this? Okay, so the hackers gained access to the online dispute portal using a number of techniques to disguise themselves. So probably some sort of Trojan or whatever.
Right. Give themselves admin privileges.
Yep. So they used existing encrypted communication channels connected to the portal to send queries and commands to other systems. So what they were doing is they're using a network to retrieve customer data. They weren't taking it all at once. They were just taking bits and pieces.
Right, little by little.
So it looked like it was normal data. So it wasn't necessarily a DDoS attack where it was overwhelming the server. They were just taking it.
It was a leak attack.
Yeah, definitely a leak. All right. So using encrypted channels allowed the hackers to blend in without being detected by Equifax scanning software. So Equifax own security scanning software wasn't seeing anything. So once the attackers gained the ability to issue system-level commands, so they got at admin level by just kind of getting in there slowly. System-level commands on this portal, they were able to issue queries to search for PI or personal identifying information, as well as unencrypted usernames and passwords. Unencrypted.
Yeah, so that's where I got the plain text from.
Yeah, so this one was, they had files that were totally unencrypted. So you think that username and passwords, they would be encrypted or some way segmented.
Some way.
So the usernames and passwords allowed them access to several other databases. So these usernames and passwords, these weren't the consumer ones. These were the high-level security people inside Equifax that were designed to keep this information safe.
Wow.
So their own usernames and passwords were not secure whatsoever. Okay, so 3 databases including Dispute Portal. I'll eventually learn how to talk here. In addition to 48 more leveraging more credentials. In all, they ran approximately 9,000 queries, which yielded a portion yielding this personal identifying information. So they were just like sending information to the server, asking questions, and then therefore gaining data. According to the logs, this attack lasted 76 days before it was discovered.
That's ridiculous.
They were in there for...
I know you guys can't, because this is audio only. You can't see my facial or like my head shaking or anything like that. But that is just ridiculous. I don't know if you guys know, like you as the listeners, know what a malicious individual can do with just your social security number.
Like one day, like
in
one
day.
minute.
Now imagine, if you will, somebody gets a hold of your social security number and you're married with the love of your life and everything's hunky-dory. You guys got a beautiful house, cars, everything like that. Somebody gets a hold of your social security number. They can go and get a power of attorney for themselves using your social security number and other information that they probably can get from this hack, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just the social security number. They need other information, but they give themselves a power of attorney, say like, and that means that they can divorce your wife in your name. Mm-hmm. They can sell your house, or they can default on your... They could just say, no, I'm not going to pay anymore. They could default on your home. You lose your home. They could sell your cars. They could do everything with a power of attorney, and you only need a certain amount of information to get a power of attorney. Yes. And one of them is your social security number.
So we're not like disclosing this information to scare you. We're just doing more of an eye-opening.
It's it's not. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that situation actually happened to a Marine in my unit who gave his mother-in-law a power of attorney to take care of bills and stuff like that, and mother-in-law didn't like the wife and divorced the wife for in the name of her son, divorced her wife, sold his house, sold the car, everything. So like, just be careful where your information is going to. Now, you should be able to trust a company like Equifax.
Yeah,
it's like you're not even able to get a loan without going through Equifax. So if you can't trust Equifax and you can't trust your own mother, then like you need to make sure that your information is being secure. And when it's not secure, how do you hold these people accountable? Was there like a federal investigation over this?
There was a federal investigation. I won't read this verbatim anymore. I'll kind of skim through it. So here's another eye-opening fact. Not only were they basically attacking Equifax for 76 days before being discovered, they were able to extract data from 51 databases during this time.
51?
Yeah, 51 different databases. So when you're thinking about databases, you're not thinking about like one or two pieces of data. You're talking about thousands upon thousands of pieces of data.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
And how they did it is they didn't take it all at once. They took it at small increments.
Yeah.
So since they were there for 76 days, they could get darn near everything.
Oh, yeah. It's like a leaky dam situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So timeline of events. So March 8th, 2017. This is when I was talking about like the computer emergency readiness team, or I believe they're called U.S. CERT, which is part of the Homeland Security.
Oh. Okay.
So they sent Equifax and many others a notice that they needed to patch this, and Equifax basically ignored them. So Equifax ignored them on a federal level.
Yikes.
So on March 9th, Equifax disseminated the U.S. CERT, which is the Computer Emergency Readiness Team, notification internally by requesting that applicable personnel responsible for Apache Strut installation and upgrade software. What is it? Sorry.
You said you weren't going to read it verbatim.
Yeah, I know. All right, so basically Equifax was not keeping up with their own patching policy. They were supposed to patch it within 48 hours, and frankly, they never did. They never patched this.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
All right, so on July 29th, Equifax's security department observed suspicious network traffic associated with that consumer dispute website. So they started getting attacked in March. Equifax security didn't notice until July 29th.
Yeah, 4 months.
That's
roughly
crazy.
4 months. Yeah.
Department continued to monitor traffic July 30th, so on and so forth. On August 2nd, consistent with the security incident procedures, they retained a cybersecurity group at a law firm to investigate what was going on. And basically, they kind of went back and did a bunch of forensics and found out exactly what happened.
And then they got into a lot of trouble.
Yep. So on August 15th, Equifax CEO was informed that it was likely consumer PII that had been stolen, which we were talking about earlier.
Which is a big no-no.
Yep. He requested a detailed briefing to determine how the company should proceed. So when I was doing this course, I actually had to do different leadership briefings as if...
Really? That's cool.
As if I was a cybersecurity analyst and part of a team. I would have to basically research how the hackers got in, what they did, why they did it, and then how to prevent it. So this is just kind of like basic stuff that even me, as a layperson, I can figure out how to do these briefings and how to do this, and just such a large scale that it happened. So they held a meeting, started a forensic investigation, so going back in time. It was basically a whole debacle. They found out, by September 4th, they found out 43 million consumers' personal information was stolen. And then they had a release on September 7th that they publicly announced that there was a breach affecting 143 million.
Also, this was all private all the way up until December.
Yeah, so
no.
The attack happened in March, and the consumers didn't know until September.
Oh, no. So, like, these people are just going around thinking, like everything's hunky-dory, still pulling credit reports, everything like that, while these attacks are still going on or being investigated. That's horrible.
So, I'm just going to wrap this up. So, what were the ramifications from Equifax? You guys have probably heard this, but I just want to give you the idea of what the scale was. So we talked about with Change Healthcare that they paid a ransom of $22 million, which seems like a lot of money. What this screw up for Equifax ended up costing them through data security costs, legal fees, investigative fees, fines, $1.4 billion.
With a fat B. Now, this was in 2017, where $1 billion was still...
It was still
quite
substantial
a substantial amount of money. Now, in today's inflation rates, $1.4 billion is just my grocery bill. But that's a lot of money for 2017.
Yeah, so there was 143 million people that had their data stolen, which created a record-breaking settlement of $1.38 billion to resolve consumer claims. Unfortunately, the $1.38 billion didn't all go to the consumers. It did go to legal fees, which is kind of ridiculous, but I'm not going to jump on my soapbox for that.
Yeah. I'm already a part of one class action lawsuit, and I think like 33% of my claim is actually going to the attorney, which... Whatever, he did all the work. Like,
yep.
I get that, but, like, this is nuts. Like, I'm sorry, but, like, that's, like, this is a federal bureau. Like, what legal fees? You know, like, we already paid the legal fees and taxes. You know what I mean? So it's just, like, that's... Well, again, different soapbox for a different day.
They hired a law firm and all that fun stuff. So that was the ramifications. Major findings. This attack could have been prevented.
Yep.
If the employees just did their job and patched when they were supposed to. So, like I said, the attackers had 76 days going undetected to steal millions of data. This attack could have been stopped if the databases were segmented from the rest of their website, especially if they're segmented from the online dispute portal.
Yeah.
And then I don't necessarily have to go into recommendations, but I guess we could do it on a consumer level. We hate patching our computers, but it's necessary because there are attacks every single day. I'm guilty of not wanting to always patch because it takes time to restart my computer and what have you. But it is a good idea to patch as soon as you can. And then make sure your most important data is not, especially for businesses, make sure it's not connected to the rest of your network. Make sure it's not able to have...
partition your hard drives accordingly.
Update your systems.
Yep.
And then number one thing, train your staff. So once again, just make sure that your staff is trained. At places that I've worked, they do send out fake phishing emails just to make sure that their staff knows how to respond to one.
Don't be the one.
I just received a phishing email. Whoever made it, it looked horrible. Like they tried to make this one look bad. Like the images were all messed up, the spelling was weird, the addresses were weird. So I was like, yeah, I saw this email and I just hit report phishing, and my company was like, congratulations, you passed.
And you're like, yay, do I get a raise? And they're like, no, get back to work.
Yeah, so I know I got a little emotional during today's podcast, but I feel like it was rightly so, because our all of our information that we're supposed to have out there, because you have to do Equifax.
It's gonna be a fun animation.
I mean, you've got TransUnion, you've got Equifax. I can't remember who the third bureau is. Might be Vantage or something like that. But they have all of our information because that's how we get our loans. That's how we get our credit cards. That's how we get.
That's how we survive.
They pull it for insurance for some dumb reason. But yeah, our information was open season because they're being negligent. This negligence has to stop. They need to create better legislation, and we need to hold our companies more responsible.
I agree.
For our data.
Yeah, I'm not a big proponent of getting the government involved, but when they're already involved, we should hold our government involved or responsible too, because like they kind of set up this whole process for Equifax to even be a thing.
Yeah, and
so like it's kind of on them as well. Like why aren't they being told to like, hey, like just some common sense legislation on even on a national security level, you know, like I used to work for the Department of Defense. Like that's kind of like in my wheelhouse of being angry and emotional about that, because it's so moronic to not have something in place to protect your consumers' information or even your fellow countrymen. Like that's it's almost, to me, it's almost treason to completely ignore the safety and well-being of your fellow Americans.
So with this, I was talking about U.S. CERT or the computer whatever readiness team. They told Equifax that this needs to be patched like 2 days after Apache Struts did it, and Equifax ignored them. Right. So
high crime.
It should have been punished way more than it was. Right. But the federal government is trying to put things in place. There was another hack that was done recently, the SolarWinds attack, which attacked the U.S.'s infrastructure and supply chain. I don't remember exactly when it was, but
it was 2019, and when COVID happened, on top of COVID disrupting supply chain issues, we've already had a supply chain issue in the works. And then by 2021, we had like ships ported outside San Diego in California, Like, nobody can get PlayStation 5s, nobody can get Xboxes. Well, those are just like consumer goods. Food production was still, there was some scarcity on some products, but they were all just in shipping containers on boats.
Yep.
Out in the harbor because our infrastructure was completely bombarded and just basically dismantled for almost 2 years. It was that was a big thing. COVID had something to do with it, but it didn't make it better when we had a data breach in it. They attacked the infrastructure.
Yeah,
of the country.
It was a huge data breach. It affected like
it was bad.
I think 30,000 different government agencies on a federal, states, local level, whatever.
It was really bad.
But then the feds, they did introduce some form of legislation saying that we're not just letting any software on our computer. There has to be a software, I believe, bill of lading or something like that, where it describes what the software does, what the company is doing to keep it secure and keep it patched. And if they don't abide by that, then the federal company will not use that software company anymore.
Well, I mean, that is the free market working its magic right there. So, you got anything else to add? I mean, this was kind of your show, which is fine.
We're getting better as a country about the cyber attacks, but then our hackers and our bad actors are getting better too. So
always train.
Yeah, just always keep vigilant. Always keep your head on the swivel. Protect your data. Don't be a victim of phishing or whatever. Just be very, very cognizant of your world around you.
Right on. Well, this was Max.
This is Twiggy.
And this was Tech A. And we'll see you in the next one.